Listening Library presents Showstopper by Lily Anderson, narrated by Keylor Leigh. For all the harbor kids, even the ones I secretly hated. Theater is a weapon. Augusto Boal. Overture. Murder is the opposite of theater, the ultimate betrayal of collaboration. In real life, everyone is a force field kid, foisting their version of reality, the one where, no, but they're the hero and they make the rules on the rest of us. No, but is the quickest way to kill a good time. Every argument between friends, political debate, even just conversation about the weather, is a negotiation of what is and what will be. Everything comes down to people trying to force their versions of reality on one another. But not on stage. On stage, we work together. Musical theater is one big, beautiful, shared story. No negotiation, just surrender. A team sport with no opposition. A collective imagination where the actors, the creative team, the techs, and the audience agree to pretend together. It starts from a place of agreement. This is the story, and builds on top of it. Nothing is real, but everyone is on the same page. Everyone is working together to create one true thing. The script and the songs and the blocking hone the edges of the world. We agree to see what isn't there. People die, but it isn't real. The blood is mint-flavored and cloyingly sweet. The knife returns to the props table. Dead bodies resurrect for curtain call. I guess that's why it took us so long to see what was happening that last summer at Camp Ghostlight. Murder is permanent in a way that theater never can be. It's one person dictating the end of a life. No rehearsal, no bows, no doing it all again at tomorrow night's show. It was too real for the unreality of what we were doing. It was ridiculous, really. Who would want to murder a bunch of theater kids? I mean, other than everyone. Chapter 1. Camp Ghostlight was more high school than high school. Like high school in a movie with a limited number of extras. With a cap of 30 campers a summer, it was easy to tell who was popular, who was a social pariah, and who'd been hit hard by puberty since last year. At my actual high school, there were plenty of people I'd never speak to, whose names I would never know. But at camp, we were always together. Our classes were a daily rotation of blocking rehearsal, dance rehearsal, and singing rehearsal. We ate all of our meals together. Even people I wasn't close to, I knew something about. At the very least, we were all the same type of person. Theater kid. And being theater kids, there were some unspoken rules we adhered to. The first was that 1. Hugs were mandatory, even if two people hated each other. Maybe most especially if they hated each other, so no one got a whiff of one's true feelings. It was fitting then that my first hug of my last summer at Camp Ghostlight wasn't from any of my actual friends. I had barely rolled my luggage through the door of the residence hall, half an hour early for dorm check-in, before I was attacked by two people I absolutely couldn't stand. Anna Leigh, whose real name is Anna Leigh, but who went by a mononym at camp inspired by Broadway star Anna Lee Ashford, and her friend Laken, who was a year younger than me. Arguably, Laken and Anna Leigh were a different type of theater kid than I was. They were ensemble. Which brings me to the second unspoken rule of being a theater kid. 2. The caste system mirrored the cast list. Leads were at the top, and ensemble on the bottom. At Ghostlight, there was very little fraternization between the two groups. The kind of part you played defined who you spent the most time with. I'd seen literal siblings ignore each other for an entire summer when one was cast in a named part and the other was shunted into ensemble. It sounds harsh, and it is. But I've heard the same thing about people who play sports or compete in academic decathlon. Popularity and talent are synonymous in a meritocracy. I had been a lead at camp for 5 summers, but I really did try not to be a jerk about it. There'd been leads in past summers who wouldn't even learn the ensemble kids' names, or pretended not to. My best friend Kai only ever referred to Anna Leigh and Lakin both as Anna and or Lakin, even though if you looked at them, they were distinctly two people. Anna Leigh was short, sour, and Chinese American. Lakin was tall and white with a face dominated by eyebrows. I didn't dislike either of them because they weren't leads. Shows need an ensemble to work, and they did just fine filling out the cast list. No, I disliked them because they were the biggest shit-stirring gossips I had the misfortune to know. Not getting enough attention on stage meant they both demanded more than their fair share off stage. If there was any drama at camp, it would be traced back to these two. They'd make sure of it. My first acting exercise of the summer was to plaster a big fat smile on my face and open my arms to hug them both. See Rule 1. All three of us said some variation of, "Oh my God, hi!" Like it was so totally random that we were running into each other at the only place we'd ever been together before. I didn't know where either of them lived or how far they traveled to get here. To me, they only existed right here, on campus at Rockville College, 3 weeks a year. I pulled out of the hug to write my name halfway down the sign-in sheet, disappointed to find that none of my friends were here yet. Didn't they know that early was on time and on time was late? Sure, Kai had to fly in now that her parents had moved her to the other side of the state, and Mars and Rosie were probably dragging in a steamer trunk full of Costco-sized snacks and dorm decorations. But still, they were abandoning me on our very last first day of camp to be pinched and plucked by Anna and or Lakin. "Is that really Faye Abernathy?" Annalie asked with a wry drawl. We might have followed each other on socials, but it was only for appearances. I had her muted. And it must have been mutual since she was giving me a hairy eyeball, cataloging the difference a year had made. My hair was new. My braces were off. My boobs were a little bigger. When I examined her in return, I could tell she'd switched from glasses to contacts and hadn't grown an inch. "I can't believe you changed your hair," Lakin said to me, invading my personal space. In the last year, she had plucked her unibrow and taken to wearing lipstick slightly too dark for her pale skin. The toe of her shoe overlapped mine like I was a croquet ball she wanted to whack. She twirled one of my curls between her fingers, testing its weight. I choked down the urge to smack her hand. After my cousins accused me of hiding my heritage behind blonde hair, I'd stopped bleaching and straightening my curls. For the first time since the 6th grade, I looked more like my dad than my mom, which is to say that I looked more obviously black and Puerto Rican than white. Sure, my skin was the same shade of pasty beige, but with dark curly hair, when people saw me, they didn't just assume I was a white girl. Or just a white girl. I'd never intended to pass for white on purpose. I'd dyed my hair for shows and kept up with it when I started getting typecast in parts that were classically blonde. Alice in Wonderland, Glinda the Good Witch, Cinderella. But no more. I was ready to break out of my pattern of nice girl dullness. I'd had my glow up, and I was ready to be seen as a hot girl, a real showstopper. I was going to dye my hair this year too, but my stylist made me swear I'd never put bleach on it. Apparently, it's really rare for someone to be naturally auburn, Lakin announced, swishing her long hair over one shoulder. It looked plain old brown to me. But you were like the perfect Betty Cooper before Faye. With a grimace, I dipped my head to gently extract my hair from her grasp. No one had ever called me Faye before, and I had zero interest in playing boring Betty Cooper. I dyed it months ago, before they even announced we were doing Riverdale. "I guess someone wants to be Veronica," Annalie said in an annoyingly astute sing-song. Lakin let out a loud, braying laugh that echoed through the lobby. "Shoo, vultures," said a cool voice behind me. "Don't be jealous because Faye looks hot with any hair color." With a shriek of true joy, I turned and threw my arms around my best friend's neck. "Kai!" "C'est moi." With a squeaky swack, Kai pressed her cheek hard against mine, on one side, then the other. Despite an obsession with all things French, Kai wasn't European. She just carried herself like she was continental. Tall and model thin, immaculate bob haircut. Red lipstick I'd think was permanent, if I hadn't roomed with her for long enough to catch her applying her makeup at dawn. She looked exactly the same as the last time I saw her, down to the fake mole penciled to the side of her right eye. Kai Tufo, the alto to my soprano, my camp roommate for the last 5 summers and my best friend for just as long. She kissed an immaculate lipstick print next to her signature on the sign-in sheet like she was Marilyn Monroe signing an autograph. Pushing past...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?